Well, battle of the bludge, says the Daily Telegraph. Despite, as I said, 1.2 million Australians taking job seeker benefits, the old dole, restaurant owners and farmers are crying out for workers. Some 10,000 hospitality jobs are being advertised each week, with high-profile chef Luke Mangan forced to reduce the opening days of his Sydney eatery Glass Brasserie from 7 days to 4. More on this and all the other big stories making headlines around the country. I'm joined from Brisbane by the host of Hardgrave here on Sky News, the wonderful Gary Hardgrave. Gary, I opened the show with this because I think it's just so critically important. Yeah. We have a national conversation. How on earth do we have 1.2 odd million people, predominantly a lot of young people, sympathetic to mature age, as I said, but predominantly young people, on the dole when businesses can't even open their usual trading hours because they can't get workers?
Oh, I mean, Sarah Hanson-Young, the Green Senator, once said we don't need to worry about farmers, Peter, because we've got supermarkets. That's where we get our food from. I mean, this is the sort of selfish logic that seems to now pervade the logic of too many younger Australians. And your point about hotel rooms is 100% correct. Australians don't want to do what you did as a younger person, clean up after other Australians. I've got a 70-year-old brother-in-law who actually cleans hotel rooms in central Queensland. He probably should be retired, but he's actually out there doing it because the work's there. He and his wife do it because no one else will. So you've got floors of hotels in Sydney and Melbourne, the big cities, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, floors that are not being let because the rooms can't be cleaned up. And the impact is the food service is not there, the travel arrangements, all the wages, all the things that come on there. So these entry-level jobs, Peter, have a huge amount of importance in our economy, huge amount of dignity with doing. Heavens, my grandparents used to clean up after people's holiday flat accommodation clean. You know, they did all of that. This is a different time and a different era. We've got people who are just bone lazy because they got it so darn easy for so long. And it's about time a bit of tough love was imposed. Our economy needs it. It's no good just simply shirking these core jobs and wait for the backpackers and the newly arrived migrants who take entry-level jobs because, frankly, they say, thank God I'm in Australia, I can earn a wage.
So why would we think, if you're under the age of 30, let's say, and you're fit and you're healthy, why wouldn't we think of saying, you know what? You get 8 weeks of the dole or 6 weeks of the dole, whatever it might be, but a defined period of time. And after that, mate, sorry, you know, pick up the vacuum cleaner, clean a few hotel rooms, pick up glasses at a pub, whatever it is. But you're not going to be on the teat beyond the 8 weeks and use the 8 weeks as a safety net, not a crutch.
Absolutely, because the safety net's turned into a hammock. It had a generation ago. It's just got worse, Peter. I remember campaigning in 1996 when I was elected to Parliament talking about the safety net becoming a hammock. It is still true now. It has got worse because we need people, younger people, to understand that these jobs are not demeaning. You know, you're not the managing director of the hotel. You're actually the cleaner, but you can work your way up and there is a dignity in doing. We have forgotten to teach kids just that.
Yeah, you're spot on. And of course, they're out today, thousands of them taking part in these Greta Thunberg-inspired climate protests across the country, road cancellations, the whole bit. They don't like coal, they don't like gas anymore, and a whole bunch of woke corporates have joined them. The tech powerhouses Canva and Atlassian, two of those that were in the papers this morning. Interesting to see that the CEO, billionaire of Atlassian, Mike Cannon-Brookes, who's an Australian, hitting out at the Morrison government, he says, for lining the pockets of coal and gas multinationals. Well, Gary, in 2019, Atlassian, the firm, paid zero tax here in Australia. They drew in $1 billion or more in local revenue. Now, he should have to cough up if he wants to speak up, surely.
Yeah, I think so. No pay, no play, no say, Mike. So shut the heck up. I think I tidied that up for 6 o'clock TV. I mean, look, Peter, again, the coal industry, the gas industry create jobs in other industries, other sectors. And if you're going to try and kill those stone dead and you're going to listen to 12-year-olds who can't spell, can't read, can't write, can't do anything but can protest, and their teachers, the teachers' unions are backing them in. I mean, again, what life lessons are we teaching them? It's a case of you can have a bitch and a moan about anything you like. You can go woke. It doesn't matter if you go broke, because some poor bugger is going to pay the tax to look after you. We are doomed as a Western civilisation, and indeed as a country, unless we turn this around and turn it around quickly. I worry, Peter, where are we going to be in this country 25 years from now? No one in government or in opposition is clear on exactly what that 25-year from now vision is going to be.
Yeah, you're spot on. Look, the budget bottom line in 25 years' time, if I had to pick one thing that's my great worry, is our lack of economic strength, which comes with it national security protection, because we've got such a vulnerable budget. Anyway, I've got to ask you, what on earth is in the water in Queensland? You've got the Premier telling everyone to get the jab, but she hasn't. You've got the Premier now saying that she's not going to set up these mass vaccination hubs because they're not going to administer AstraZeneca, she says, in light of all these additional blood clotting cases. And she's also not promising, if people even get the jab, that she will not shut the borders for those that have been vaccinated. I mean, the argument is from premiers like Gladys Berejiklian, once you're jabbed, we're back to being one country and you can't be locked out. The others are saying, no, jab or not, if we want to shut the borders, we will. What's going on?
Well, I'm going to talk a bit about that tonight on my program up to 9 o'clock. I mean, the fact that we're losing our freedom in this country almost on a daily basis, our freedom is in serious decline. What's in the water in Queensland? Well, good, fresh water in the main, but the problem is the Premier is just being so tricky about all of this, and it's disappointing that the one state leader, the one political leader in government around the country that hasn't done what everybody else has done is the Queensland Premier. She's been holier than thou. Queensland hospitals are for Queenslanders. I guess the COVID jabs are for Queenslanders if it's made in Queensland. Who knows? Look, I think it's a really bad misstep. A lot of people, everyday people, are pretty angry about the hypocrisy that is now rank and really seriously obvious. On the mass vaccination centres, I do actually accept that, and you may find this very funny as a Victorian, Peter, but, you know, Queensland is different in the sense that we are very, very decentralised. And so using the Pharmacy Guild outcome, which I believe was afforded yesterday, where pharmacies are now going to make the jabs available, using our GPs, in other words, dispersing the jabs to where people are rather than having people come to big hubs, does make a bit of sense in the Queensland context. It's really it's a Queensland kind of thing there. Yeah, it's a Queensland thing.
Yeah, fair point about decentralisation. And look, I'm a fan of pharmacies doing more in a general sense because it helps us with our overall GP costs and things in a federal budget sense. Very interesting too. Last October, we had the Queensland election campaign. A lot of chat about a lobbyist who had previously worked for the Labor government, working inside Anastasia Palaszczuk's Premier's office, running her election campaign. Now, one of these jokers has come out today, Evan Moorhead. He runs a strategy group. I'm not going to give it a free kick by naming it on air, but he is saying now that there has to be improvement in the corruption rules around so-called third-party lobbying. You're head of the Corruption Commission up there, a guy called Alan McSporran, has come out and said there needs to be improvement. Of course, Evan Moorhead's profit under the old regime. Now he says it's just terrible, it needs to be fixed. This is terrible. I watched this unfold in the campaign, and Gary, I thought it might sink her, but people clearly just turned a page in the Courier Mail and moved on. Yeah,
and look, the reality is you've got apparently very profitable, by their own admission. They've got people beating a big path to their door because apparently they open lots of doors. One's a former State Secretary of the Labor Party, another one's a former one-term member of Parliament under the Labor Party. They've set up this business, they're doing very well. This is a classic case of I'm protesting my innocence. I'm protesting it maybe a bit too much. That's what I would have thought. Don't look at me, look at all of them. For heaven's sakes, they're the ones with the big shingle out there. They're the ones with the big reputation for being able to deliver the big outcomes at a big price and make big profit. And now they want to pick on ordinary everyday people who may well be providing services in other organisations. If people are performing lobbying duties, that means that they have absolutely no connection with the company they're representing when they're talking to people inside government. They naturally have to register as a lobbyist. If they are actually attached to that company, working for that company, and speak to somebody, they're not a lobbyist. I think the rules are pretty simple. These blokes are protesting their innocence just a tad too much, Peter.
And they were campaign insiders. They helped get her there. Now the payoff comes. That's certainly the allegations headed their way. Just before we go, Britain's top spy is broken cover, and he's talking a lot of concern out there about Facebook giving terrorists a free pass because they're going to bring in end-to-end encryption. It was an interview with Times Radio. MI5 chief Ken McCalman, he says the Czech giant's changes to Instagram and Messenger, he thinks it'll be easy for terrorists to plot attacks, and obviously it's front of mind there in the UK. This is a real worry.
Well, look, Peter, it is, and all forms of social media are becoming very antisocial, and in so many ways, if Facebook was a country, it would be the biggest populated country in the world. And in a lot of ways, given the way they've handled the American election campaign, Twitter as well, given the way that they promote certain issues above certain other things, you know, all they're doing is being the propaganda arm of the country of Facebook, the Republic of Facebook, maybe the People's Republic of Facebook. So if MI5 says they're acting as a bit of a comfort to a terrorist organisation, I think it's time we started to call them out for what they are and maybe disconnect. All of us just maybe, if we don't know what's going on Facebook, would be a lot more comforted. But I hope that our authorities who look at things such as security are keeping a very, very close eye on the way they're using technology to hurt good countries like ours.
Gary, brilliant as always. I'll be watching a little later on tonight. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Peter. Good on you. Cheers.